first try, but I welcomed it. Yeah. So again, welcome, good morning to all of you. One of the biggest news of the day is that there's this large entity that's eating into the food business. Which one is that? The Swiggies and Zomatos of the world are going to have a little cardiac arrest. Sorry? Absolutely, right? So they're making plans to getting into this business, and trouble's just adding up for Zomato, I guess. But that's a good part of it. So welcome to the Internet Commerce Summit 2019, the first ever summit which focuses on businesses that are impacted by internet commerce. And my name is Siju Narayan, and you really have no respite. You will have to bear with me for the next 2 days, right? And I, apart from being the general manager for APAC for a company called Loyalty Juggernaut, which is into some very cutting-edge contemporary solutions in loyalty, customer loyalty and customer engagement. I'm also on the advisory board of Glevoz Consulting, an end-to-end digital consulting firm. And like I said, I'm your host for the next 2 days. So get used to me. Yeah. Jokes apart, the whole idea is to make sure that the sessions are interactive. You learn something out of it. We learn something out of it, right? It sounds cliched, but then we are all here to learn, unlearn, and relearn. It becomes quite important to unlearn at times. I'm on the wrong side, the right side of 45. So I look forward to unlearning quite a few things that I thought were good enough. Internet. It's been 30 years of web browsing, right? 1989 was when Sir Timothy Berners-Lee started this whole concept of the World Wide Web. And in 30 years, the world has come a long, long way. Any idea what this number is? About 1.7 billion. What could this be? And this is as of yesterday evening. Today, if you check, it's going to be phenomenally higher than this. So what's this number? Online buyers? No. No. Who said that? You're right. That's the number of websites, right? These are the total number of websites. Obviously, not all of them are active, but that's about the power of internet. And what happens in an internet minute, right? This is one of our favorite slides for a lot of people, right? But it's incredible. How many of you have actually gone down to each of these blocks and figured out as to how massive it is, right? We're talking of 400,000 apps being downloaded in a minute, right? I work in the retail sector quite a lot here in India and outside as well. And one of the questions that keep getting asked is, what's the relevance of apps, right? How important are apps to my overall customer engagement strategy? 400,000 apps, 1.4 million swipes on Tinder. You can ignore that for a minute. Just one generation laughed. So, 1 million logins on Facebook. I certainly don't want anyone in this room to be contributing to that. Yeah, but it's about 1 million logins on Facebook. $1 billion spent online. $1 billion spent online in an internet minute. What I definitely want you to be part of the 90,000 who are going to tweet, right? So that's what happens in an internet minute. This is as recently as about 2 months back that was released. The internet brings people closer. Have you guys heard of this story? This was about 3 days back. A lady called Mevan, who was blessed to have met up with a gentleman who gifted her a cycle during her 5 years as a refugee. And she started a search, right? She started a search on the internet to figure out who this gentleman was. After 3,000 RTs and thousands of wonderful messages, she finally got in touch with this gentleman, right? This is the power of internet. And there are multiple other families that he's helped, and they've all gotten together to acknowledge the fact that he is indeed a great person. How many of you have seen this 3 days back? Right? That gentleman on the road did an 11-second 100 meters barefoot on a concrete road. Right? Shivraj Singh Chauhan, ex-MP, CM, picked it up. It went up to Kiran Rijiju, And now he's on his way to join a sports academy. We are on 20th. This was 17th late evening. Look at the speed at which things stop. Shout out from who's here from Decathlon? Anyone here from Decathlon? Now that's a personal, now that's the Decathlon store, by the way. Okay, if you venture into that, you might just be got sold ski boots and campsites and all that stuff. Had a wonderful experience with a gentleman at Decathlon in our city mall, and this is my personal experience. I tweeted about it. I don't know how many of you know about this, right? It's also reached Decathlon France. Now, it's this very, very small, honest to goodness, straight from the heart tweet of mine, which had its impact, right? So that's what we can do all about. Standard Maslow's hierarchy. Then about 8-9 years back, we added this to our slides, wherein Wi-Fi was one of it. And then I jumped onto this, wherein every part of Maslow's hierarchy is actually replaced with a digital entity. And that kind of indicates the power of internet commerce, which has impacted every aspect of business, whether it's about business models, technology, functions, roles. Every industry worth its name has been disrupted. We know all about this, about how Amazon, Airbnb, Netflix, Uber, and anyone knows about this company called Purple? Purple, the mattress company, they were the first to start with the whole question of trials, saying 100 nights, use it for 100 nights. If you don't like it, give it back. Okay? Virtually unthinkable earlier. So every industry has been impacted. And then when we get into conversations, the conversations are all around what kind of a world is this? Is this an omni-channel world? Is this a multi-channel world? Are we physical going online? But Jack Ma, obviously his words have some weight. He says it's a concept of new retail, where there's a significant integration of not only online, offline, but you're talking about logistics and data across a single value chain, right? The difference has been looking at the whole ecosystem of retail as a single value chain. And that's where your supply chain comes into focus, your customer service comes into focus. A brief history of Amazon when it hit the $1 trillion capitalization mark. This kind of also indicates, I don't want to get into details, but it kind of indicates how the world has been moving in terms of the way retailers and the ones who have disrupted the land of retail have moved across the value chain. And I talked about how it impacts roles. And it's never been truer now. We all talk about how the CIO role has been impacted, how the CIO has to move from point A to point B. But one particular role that's hugely impacted is that of a CMO. Anyone who's a CMO or from the marketing organization here? Do you agree that the role has been impacted? Huge changes? So do you love technology or not? Great. Your CIO is one nice, happy man. So the whole idea is how has this role evolved in a manner? And the reason why I focused on CMO and the CIO is because these are the two roles. Of course, Rajiv, CEO role is the most important because that's the one which drives the culture down. And like we know, it's all about culture. CIO, they've been typically a trusted operator. They've kept the lights on, right? They've ensured that there was a time when the CIO used to tell us that if you are implementing XYZ, I'm sure I won't get fired because it's the amount of time that it takes and the fact that it's so crucial to the business. But the whole idea is how do you become a business co-creator and a change instigator? Now that's interesting that I came across. How do you actually become the change instigator? And that's one of the questions that I'll probably put to the CEO panel as well, as to who owns this whole process of digital transformation and who owns this whole process of change within the organization. Multiple trends. The reason why I put this up is because a lot of this is going to be covered in the next 2 days through multiple sessions. We've got a plethora of great leaders out here who are going to discuss in terms of what they believe are the trends, and more importantly, how have they used it in their organization. So we all know theory, right? And this is where I want to rely on you guys. You guys will have to ask the tough questions. You guys will have to ask probing questions. You guys need to understand as to what it means to you. Then only is your investment of time and money and effort of coming here going to pay dividends, right? Nice slide, right? This is called as the MarTech 5000. This is by a gentleman called Scott Brinker. who goes by the Twitter handle Chief Martech. He's also the chief of HubSpot. So he and his team compiles this. He stopped renaming it after 5,000, okay? Because it's incredible. These are all marketing technology companies / solutions. Right? This is how widespread the use of technology has been, and that's even more important because of how the consumer has evolved. How many of you have seen this? About 6 years back. This is a quoted classic example of how social media and marketing integrates itself to deliver a brand promise in a way that the customer realizes it, understands it, and values it. Right? At the 47th Super Bowl, the lights went off. Right? The stadium came under almost a cover of darkness. There was a major game happening. Part of the stadium was awash in white light, a very small part. Majority part of the stadium was dark. 4 or 5 companies hit Twitter within 8 minutes, sent out a campaign that resulted in massive retweets and a massive amount of recognition. While this wasn't the first was Audi. You know what Audi's tweet was? We are sending some LED lights over to the stadium. You know why? Because the stadium was a Mercedes-Benz stadium. Right? So they were trying to get even with that. But this was what the war room of Mondelez, along with their marketing agency, brought out, saying that you can still dunk in the dark. Because if you see the cookie, which is dark and white, more or less resemble the entire stadium, and they came out with this. I guess the reaction time was about 8 minutes. And this goes down the annals of marketing history as one of the finest responses. So it's all about speed. The question that the focus that I'm bringing out here is about, it's not only about technology, it's about speed to react. It's about speed to react to a customer demand. And the internet has brought about evolution on all fronts. I'll quickly go through this. We are at a stage where we are looking at data, industry, social, and telecom at different levels of maturity. Right? It's about data 3.0, industry 4.0, we are all aware, social and telecom 5G. And very, very quickly, if I go back, data, we moved on from simple applications to more SMAC, which is social media, mobile analytics and cloud. And industry, we've moved on to from steam power mechanizations to internet and cyber-physical sites and cyber-physical systems. Social, how many of you are aware of this whole concept around social 5.0? I think it's a good idea to kind of poke into that, because it's an incredible side stuff that's happening, led by Japan. The whole idea is around, while everyone understands that technology is evolving at a pace that's really, really fast, it's essentially changing the very basic nature of the society, right? Because it's all about human interactions, and that's why they're trying to build in this whole concept around social 5.0, where it's all about convergence. And the whole idea is to make sure as to how do we leverage technology without really going mad and going at each other's throats. Right? That's social 5.0. Telecom has seen its evolution from just being a voice platform to being actually a computing platform as well. So we are looking at 5G, where we are looking at some bits of computing happening within the telecom layer itself, and not everything happening either at the edge or either on the cloud, right? So we are in pretty interesting times, and this is how we will, through the next 2 days on various sessions, we'll focus on multiple parts of it. It's a knowledge-based economy. We have 2 days of learning, unlearning, and relearning. Please participate, ask questions, provide feedback. We'll incentivize this a little bit. Right? So all panel discussions and all the major sessions, for anyone who asks a particularly good question that puts a speaker on the mat, you didn't hear it from me. Okay? We'll have a nice little gift going out, which you can pretty much use in your daily lives, right? So this is the end of my part.